Alrighty, in this video we're going to be going over several buffs. We're going to start out with the Carnage Talisman. The Carnage Talisman will give you a 40% buff or 40% damage increase for 30 to 60 seconds depending on your Onmyo magic power. And the Soul Purge Talisman will give you a 55% damage bonus for about 50 to 110 seconds ish, depending on your Onmyo magic power. These do both stack, so you can go ahead and use Soul Purge. It also has the benefit of giving you higher luck, so using this can help get better drops, and as long as you either finish the mission or as long as you finish the mission before the buff wears out, it does not eat at your familiarity. So you need at least 300 familiarity to use this buff. And when the buff runs out, your familiarity is set to 0. So another quick way to counteract this is whetstones. If you look at my divination and earthfolding video, I showed you how to fight and farm a Nurikabe soul core. Nurikabes, for whatever reason, they seem to always drop a whetstone. At least for me, they've never not dropped a whetstone. And that's a pretty easy way to get it, is to just go fight a couple Nurikabes and get a whetstone. What whetstones do is they give your familiarity plus 150. You need at least 300 familiarity to use both the Soul Purge Talisman, which is what I use now, or what the buff is right now, and the Soul Release Talisman. More on that in here in just a second. So if you're doing a dual mission, or if you're at the last boss of the mission, the Soul Purge Talisman, this one here, is a really good item to use, because as long as you don't die or you don't pray at a shrine, you'll keep this buff, and you will, if you finish the mission in time, your familiarity will not be decreased to 0. So very good way. Now, if you know you're going to your buff's going to run out before you can complete the mission, right before the buff runs out, you can use a Soul Release Talisman. And what the Soul Release Talisman does is it immediately reduces your familiarity to 0. So there's no way to cheese this. It just instantly releases your familiarity to 0, but it does a pretty significant amount of damage in the meantime. So 23,000 without the horn break. My damage is 8,000 on a strong attack. So pretty significant, about 3 times, a little less, but about 3 times what my strong attack does. And that's without the that's with the Soul Purge buff. We'll try our strong attack here in a second. Not that you would ever use this without the attack buff, but we'll just go ahead and use it. 3,000. So I went from 3,000, my damage went from 3,000 to 58, which is pretty crazy. And then, like I said, you can just use this when you know it's about to release. Luckily, your familiarity in the dojo does not release, and you can use this as much times as you want. And then you can also stack in the Carnage Talisman, which gives you that extra 40% attack bonus. And it's just really nice to have. It does decrease your defense. You can counter this with a impurity transference or a steel talisman, because I believe it's a 20% debuff on yourself, but Steel Talisman is also 20% a buff, so you can kind of counteract that with that. Moving on, we have the Luminous Blade Talisman, which is the only secret Onmyo skill in the game, and you get it from fighting the guy that summons the lightning gods of Yomi. The trick here is to actually use it with Ginbu, because Ginbu has, and this applies to every Onmyo thing ever, but Ginbu has Stalwart Onmyo magic, so grants immunity to being staggered if you are attacked while casting Onmyo magic. So I cannot be staggered or knocked down unless I run out of ki. The entire time the entire time the attack is going off. And it does alright damage. It's definitely not the best skill in the game, but it does do quite a bit of damage. And for builds that don't have a whole lot of damage buffs, it's a respectable amount of damage. Alrighty. And I think that is it for the damage buffs as far as that is concerned. So I will go ahead and end the video here. Thank you for wasting your time with me. I will see you guys in the next one.